Alright, so this is Dulcijo number 2. And so it has 2 strings, and then it has the 3rd short string, and the fret spacing is laid out like a dulcimer. Okay, and this has a highly flamed curly maple neck. It has spalted maple peghead overlay and spalted maple frailing scoop. So it's very similar to the one I just finished for another gentleman. I made this one basically so that I could learn some tunes and put them up for that instrument that I have just sent out to that gentleman. This tackhead banjo rim, I made this 11 years ago, and it was the pot for my long neck banjo, which I have a video up of, and I was going to rebuild it as a regular banjo. But in the meantime, I decided to build another one of these necks, and I just attached it to this pot. And I learned some interesting things. So because this is a smaller instrument, this 3-string, I think the smaller pot will focus the sound better. I spent a little bit of time trying to get this right. So obviously when you build a banjo, you want to make sure that the head tension is as tight as you can get it, because that's what's going to provide you a stable base for your string tuning and all that kind of stuff. If the head's constantly flexing on you, it's going to cause you problems with intonation and everything else. So I had to fidget with this a little bit. I had to bend this tailpiece a little bit back to get a little bit more pressure on this bridge, and then I had to actually do some stuffing to get the banjo to sound much better. It was sounding pretty harsh, and before I actually got a little bit more pressure on the bridge, it was really bad. It was hard to stay in tune. And then again, I think when you have a bigger pot, it tends to wash out the sound, where the smaller pot will focus it better. Plus you'll have a smallest surface area, and the 3-string tension will work better with that, as opposed to a bigger surface area, which really this should have at least 5 strings on it. So to get a better you get a better sound out of it, a fuller sound. So I am going to rebuild this as a banjo, but I went ahead and put this neck on it, and then I'll either make a small pot, or I'll find a small, like 8-inch tunable hand drum, and I'll put this neck on it. So I'll still have a Dulcijo to teach with and play, but then this will go back to be a regular banjo. So I just thought I'd throw that out there so you can actually hear. You can see how kind of still unstable that skin is. So really what I need to do in order to get this right is to put like a presto tailpiece on it, so that it will exert tension on these strings, and that will put enough tension on the head to keep this more stable. I will still probably have to put a rag in it to mellow it out so it won't sound so harsh, but it'll be more stable. But so it's interesting. It's an interesting instrument. This stick is white whinge, and I had to cut this out a little bit bigger, and then I just made an improvised holder for it. I put a threaded rod in there, and then just used a lock nut to hold it in place. Cut a slot in here, that way you can adjust it a little bit this way, the neck for action, and it's not bad. Might be a little high. It's certainly quite playable. But again, I think I'll improve that when I get into it. I'll put it on a smaller pot, and it'll be a much better instrument. I think it'll sound better too, even though this doesn't sound too horrible. But it's interesting because you learn something with everything you do. If you're building you take something away from every build, and this was definitely something I took away from this. Is that, you know, less string tension, needs a smaller pot to focus the sound. Make sure you get the hide super tight, or use a tailpiece to tighten the hide down. So lots of learning here. And as I said before, this instrument was invented by a guy named Michael Fox, and you know, he strings it, I think, with all 9-gauge strings, and he tunes it up to a higher tuning of DAA. And this one is actually in B-flat, F, B-flat. So I did want to put this up and show you that you can play a song like this with one finger. So that's the whole reason I built this banjo, so that the gentleman can play, you know, something that is chordal and that sounds decent with just one finger. So that's the goal here, is to supply an instrument that's going to work for him. And then, of course, after building one, I get intrigued, and then I have to have one. But I wanted to have one too, so that I can work out tabs and put that stuff up. You know, it's really an interesting concept, and I think he came at it with a unique perspective by maintaining this short string. So you're able to maintain your claw hammer technique while using kind of a dulcimer platform. So it's really cool. You know, a lot of people will build a regular stick dulcimer with a banjo pot, and that's fine. You can use a pick or anything, but it's hard. You can't replace this short string for your frailing technique, you know. So I think maintaining that is important for this instrument, you know. Dulcijo number 2. Thanks for watching. Oh, you gotta love that maple. Happy playing.